The start of the NFL playoffs, Wildcard weekend, and this season they're calling it Super Wildcard weekend. And I'm hoping that in at least half of these games, they put the wild in Wildcard. Johnny Talk Sports here to bring you my predictions for Wildcard weekend. Earlier today, I uploaded my power rankings, so if you want to check that out, please do so. And let's get started with these wildcard predictions. I'm looking forward to making these predictions. We've got some new faces in the playoffs this year. We've got a few quarterbacks making their playoff debuts this weekend. And really looking forward to it. So let's get to the picks. Kicking things off with the Raiders and the Bengals. And I don't think there could have been a better way to begin these playoffs. Between two franchises where there has been some playoff heartbreak in the past, and one of these teams will advance to the divisional round. Something that I honestly didn't really expect to begin the year. I especially didn't expect Cincinnati to be here in these playoffs at the beginning of the year. But the Bengals, they are my team of the year no matter what happens, because they have exceeded expectations. And I think Zach Taylor is deserving of Coach of the Year, because Joe Burrow, he looks like a top 10 QB in the league right now. And he has been playing some clean football. Despite earlier in the year where he was throwing a lot of interceptions, turning the ball over, but Joe Burrow has been playing clean football these last few weeks. I believe he hasn't thrown an interception in his last 4 or 5 games. While the Raiders, on the other hand, they overcame a lot this season, distraction after distraction, no matter what the distraction was. It seemed like every other week, the Raiders had some sort of distraction that they had to overcome, and they managed to make the playoffs. They won 4 straight games to get to these playoffs, so the Raiders are coming in hot. And this is Derek Carr's playoff debut, because he did not play in the Raiders playoff game a few years ago with an ACL injury. So both these quarterbacks making their playoff debuts. And I think there's going to be an offensive battle here. I think both defenses are very underrated. I think it's going to come down to which defense makes plays at the end of the game. And I've got to give that edge to Cincinnati. I think it's going to be a close game start to finish. If I had to guess, this game might go into overtime. But I think the Bengals will win by a score of 33-27. Moving on to the Patriots and the Bills. Now this is round 3 between these two teams this season. New England won round 1, the Bills won round 2 very convincingly. And I want to break this pick down by what I was mentioning when predicting these two teams to face off in round 2. In the first game, the weather conditions were absolutely ridiculous, which led to a low-scoring game. If you take out the long Damian Harris touchdown run, the Bills' defense, they played a near-perfect game that night. So with that in mind, you got to think the Bills have the best defense in the league, statistically. While the Patriots, yes, they have Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in the NFL. So he's got more coaching experience than Sean McDermott does. But Mac Jones is making his playoff debut this weekend. And the Patriots, throughout the year, they have been carried by their defense and the running game. So as long as the Bills' defense stops the run and forces Mac Jones to make throws, I think the Bills win this game easily. In fact, before I even make the prediction official, I've seen some people throughout social media these last few weeks, before the Patriots went on their dry spell, to say, because they're coming into this game losing 3 out of their last 4 games, about how the Patriots, they're legitimate contenders, or how it's going to be Tampa Bay and New England in the Super Bowl, because that's what the NFL wants. The New England and Tampa Bay is the Super Bowl matchup that the NFL wants, but they're not going to get it. Because for one, your defense can only carry you so far. Your running game can only carry you so far. Eventually, your quarterback's going to have to make some plays. And I don't think Mac Jones is experienced to do that just yet. So I'm not taking anything away from Mac Jones. He's had a really solid season so far. But I just think that Josh Allen is the better quarterback in this matchup, the more playoff experienced quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Bills. I think they're going to win by at least 14 points. I think this game is going to be in the neighborhood of probably 28-14. Moving on to the Eagles and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are the reigning Super Bowl champions, and their road to run it back begins now. However, going into these playoffs, they are thin at wide receiver and running back. At wide receiver, Chris Godwin's out for the year. Antonio Brown had his incident a few weeks ago on the field against the Jets. Leonard Fournette injured right now. Ronald Jones injured right now. So they're thin at wide receiver and running back. And they came into the season as the favorite to win it all because why wouldn't they? They had every starter from that team last year returning this season. And now they have a few of those guys out, including one of them not be on the team anymore. While the Eagles, they may be 0-6 against playoff teams this season, but they do have a couple things going for them. They have the best rushing offense in the league. Miles Sanders is potentially going to return this week after missing the last couple of weeks with a hand injury. Their defense is underrated, but it is inconsistent, which I've been saying all year long. One week, the Eagles' defense can look like a top 5 defense in the NFL, and the next week, they can look like a bottom 5 defense. So which Eagles defense shows up this Sunday is going to determine whether or not the Eagles are going to have a chance to win this game. While the Buccaneers, they do have Tom Brady in his 2 decades of the NFL with all of this playoff experience, I just got to give the edge to Tampa Bay. And this is not downplaying what the Eagles have done this season, which they're coming in here on a bit of a hot streak because many people, including myself, counted them out at one point in the year. But then once they beat the Saints, then I thought the Eagles, they can go on a hot streak to make a surprise playoff run, and now they are here. But I think with the Eagles defense that I think is going to show up in this game, one of those defenses that look like a top 5 defense in the league, I think to be really close. I think it's going to be much closer than what experts are saying, what Vegas is saying. But it's just hard to pick against Tom Brady at this point because every time I pick against Tom Brady, he ends up proving me wrong. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay to win this game, but only by a score of 27-23. I think the Eagles keep this close from start to finish. I just think the Buccaneers defense, they're going to make a play to seal the game up late. Moving on to the 49ers and the Cowboys. The 49ers in these playoffs with a win over the Rams in Week 18 in overtime after falling behind 17-0 early in that game. While the Cowboys, it looked like they could have been a 2 seed a few weeks ago, but they dropped to the 3 seed. And now they face off against a 49ers team that I think is one of the more hotter teams coming into the playoffs. The 49ers, they have been running the ball well throughout these last few weeks. Brandon Ayuk, he had a slow start to the year, but he is picking up steam the further on the season goes. Deebo Samuel has been one of the best receivers in the league all season long. He's Mr. Versatility. He can play in the backfield. He can play wide. He can essentially do it all. He even threw a touchdown pass last week. So he's Mr. Versatility. I also want to see if George Kittle will get more involved in this 49ers offense, as he has been pretty quiet in these last 3 weeks, mainly because they've been getting carried by their running game and Deebo Samuel. And George Kittle's been more used for blocking as of late, is what I have noticed. But I feel like if the 49ers, they want to not only win this game, but to make a deep playoff run, they've got to get George Kittle more involved. And the way I see this game, I think this game is going to be decided on the Cowboys defense because there's been talks all year long. There's been a lot of hype around Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, with Trayvon Diggs leading the league with 11 interceptions this season. It's because he gets thrown to all the time because nobody's afraid to throw to him because he's given up the most yards in coverage out of any corner in the league. In fact, he was on pace at one point to give the most ever by a corner. So they're not afraid to throw to Trayvon Diggs. And I think that's going to be the difference in the game is can Deebo Samuel and Ayuk, can they get past that Cowboy secondary? And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I think the speed of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk is going to be the difference in this game on why the 49ers, they go into AT&T Stadium and pull off the upset against the Cowboys. As I think this will be an offensive battle. I think it's going to be a shootout because Dallas has their big three in Dak, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. But CeeDee Lamb hasn't really been that much involved lately. So I'm going to go with the 49ers to pull off this upset. I do think the running games will be great. I think Zeke's going to have a solid day. I think that Elijah Mitchell's going to have a solid day, Jeff Wilson Jr. So I think if the 49ers, they follow a certain philosophy. If they can run the football efficiently, keep Dak and the Cowboys offense on the sidelines, 49ers should win this game easily. But I think it's going to be an offensive battle, though. I think San Francisco wins by a score of 31-30. Moving on to the Steelers and the Chiefs. The Steelers found their way in these playoffs with the win over the Ravens last week and the Jaguars upsetting the Colts and the Chargers and Raiders not tying. So Ben Roethlisberger gets one last chance at a playoff run. Unfortunately for Roethlisberger and the Steelers, they have to go on the road to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, a team that they lost to 36-10 a few weeks ago in the loudest stadium in the NFL. And I can only imagine how it's going to be in prime time. So when you look at something like the Chiefs beating the Steelers 36-10, absolutely dismantling them the first time around, you got to ask yourself, how can the Steelers not only win this game, but to even make the game even closer to what it was the first time? Well, the Steelers, I would imagine, they're going to be heavily reliant on rookie running back Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris is going to get at least 30 touches in this game, if not 35. Because I think he's going to have to carry the Steelers in this game if they want to win this one. Because the Chiefs, they do have their moments where they have a hard time stopping the run. And we've seen that in the past. And can their defense, can they get to Patrick Mahomes? Can they harass him? Can he get harassed by TJ Watt and that Steelers defense? But I just feel like as long as the Chiefs have Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey, I think that offense is nearly unstoppable. And you got to have a really good defense to beat Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill. As we learned that from last year's Super Bowl, where the Bucs had an unbelievable defense. Anything can happen in these playoffs, but for a team that lost to a team 36-10 and you're asking them to win a playoff game, I think that's really a tough ask. Because the Chiefs, they got on a hot streak after starting the year off 3-4. And they've only given up more than 24 points 2 times since that 3-4 start. So for the Steelers to win this game, to even have a chance, I think they got to score at least 28 points. And with Roethlisberger as your quarterback, I think that's a really tough ask. So I'm going with Kansas City to absolutely dismantle the Steelers again. But I think it'll be a little bit close this time. I'm going to say it's going to be by a score of 35-20. I think the Steelers make it a little bit closer this time. I think the Steelers rely heavily on Najee Harris in this game to try to keep Mahomes off this, on the sidelines. But I don't think it works for too long. I like Kansas City. Wildcard weekend wraps up with the Cardinals and the Rams on Monday Night Football. I think we're in for a good one here. Kyler Murray making his playoff debut for the Cardinals. and Matthew Stafford making his playoff debut with the Rams. Now, going this matchup, the way I see this game is both of these defenses, I feel like they are overrated to say. Because both of these teams, at one point in the year, there was a lot of anticipation for these two teams, especially defensively, as it looked like the Cardinals, they were going to have one of the better defenses in the league. But these two defenses, they've been giving up quite a bit of yardage, quite a bit of points throughout the year. And the Rams defense doesn't look as intimidating as it did last year. The Rams still have Henderson out. They still have him on IR, but they did get Cam Akers back, and he did play in Week 18 for a little bit against the 49ers. Well, the Cardinals, they are coming off of a blowout loss to the Seahawks, and I say that because the Seahawks absolutely dominated that game in the later portion of the game when it mattered. So I think this game is going to be a high-scoring game. I think we could see the score in the high 30s, maybe even the 40s. I think we're in for that big of a matchup. The big question for me in this game is, can Matthew Stafford, he does have some playoff experience here, but he has yet to win a playoff game. He's 0 for 2 in the playoffs. So can he finally get that playoff win? Because the Rams, they made moves throughout the year, trading for Matthew Stafford, giving up more draft picks to get Matthew Stafford, which so far that's panning out really well. They traded for Von Miller at the trade deadline. They signed Odell Beckham. So these moves, in order for these moves to completely pay off, they at least have to get, in my opinion, to the NFC Championship game. If they don't, then this season is a complete bust for them. Cooper Kupp had one of the best receiving seasons in NFL history. So everything they've accomplished so far, everything they've done, it won't pay off unless they at least get to, in my opinion, the NFC Championship game. But in this game, I think this is going to be a game of who has the ball last. And I think that's going to be the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals pull off the upset. I think the Cardinals win a high-scoring game of 45-41. The Cardinals, they seem to be a much better team on the road than they are at home. And I think with this being a road game for the Cardinals, I think they win this one because they've been a much better road team this season for some reason. So I'm going with Arizona. And those are my Wildcard Weekend predictions. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, have a great day.